Hi everyone, it's Lisa from I Dream in Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. For today's soap, I'm starting off making a series of embeds. The first of those is a yellow sun that I want. Now I haven't done this in a mould or anything, I've just literally taken some yellow soap dough. I haven't even extruded it, I've just rolled it into a tube. And then as you can see there, I was just using a table mat because I wanted that column, as it were, to be nice and flat. So rolling it with something flat does really help. And the soap I'm going to be using these embeds in is going to be an Africa soap. Now, what I'm doing is, you may remember a few weeks ago I did a collaboration with the fantastic Keely from Soy and Shay, where I did an Australia themed soap and she did a British themed soap. Now, with my Australia themed soap, that made me think, do you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a soap for each of the continents of the world. So I've already done Australia, and my second soap, which is what I'm going to be doing here, is going to be my Africa soap. So eventually I'm going to have 7 soaps in my series. Now some of them, but not all, I am going to sell individually. Like for example, my Australia themed soap will be up for sale in the shop release, which is happening tomorrow, the 5th of June. But not all of them will be. I'm going to be doing some little collection packs of the whole series of continents, and those will be put up for sale in time for Christmas. Now, you may be thinking, well, hang on a minute, with Africa, wouldn't you expect a safari and to see some lions and tigers and giraffes and all of that sort of stuff? Well, yes, you could, but I've actually picked Egypt. Egypt, I'm sure you know, is part of the continent of Africa, and I wanted to do something a little bit different than just the obvious Africa theme that you might think about. So as you saw earlier, I've already made a sun for my scene, and now I'm just extruding some camels so I can have some camels wandering around in front of some pyramids. So once I've got those all extruded, I'm just going to cut them roughly to the size of my mould and set those and my sun embeds off to the side to harden up a little bit before I trim them finally to put them in my soap. Now, funnily enough, in my new world of I'm just going to make whatever soaps I like with whatever colours I like and then get assessments for them afterwards, I'm actually only using 3 colours in this soap, and they are Sunshine Yellow and Terracotta Red from Mica Mama, and then some activated charcoal. And then for my fragrance, I'm using Nag Champa from Sensory Perfection. And as you can see, when I did my little test of this fragrance, it does discolour slightly to a light tan, but that's really not going to be a problem for the design that I've got planned. So the first thing I'm going to do is the sky. I'm actually going to make this soap upside down in the mould, and I've got a very good reason for that, and it's to do with the sky. I'm going to do an ombre sky, and I want it where it's by the sunset, as it were. I want the sky to be quite bright, and then I want it going outwards and getting darker and darker as we move away from that setting sun. But also I wanted to think about a way that I could actually make that ombre curve around the sun. Because quite often when you pour an ombre you might end up with straight lines, and I didn't really want that. But what I did start to think about is when you pour an ombre normally down the side of a mould and you cut it just like a normal bar of soap, you end up with a curve to that ombre. And notice that curve sort of bends down into the mould. So therefore, if I build my soap upside down, that will effectively flip that ombre up the other way, and I have the circular banding going around my setting sun. So I've weighed out the lye and oils I need for my sky portion, and I've just brought them to emulsion. Now I want my sky, as I said previously, to be lighter around the sun, so I want some almost sort of yellow orangey colours around the setting sun, moving into orangey red and then getting darker and darker into sort of like almost a darker brown and black colour going towards the outside of that night sky. So I'm just using my pre-dispersed micas to get the colours I want in my individual jugs. Now these colours are going to look quite dramatically different at the moment, but that's okay because I'm actually going to ombre them, so I'm going to end up pouring them into each other to hopefully get more of a gradual shade going through the colours. And then I'll just add in my fragrance oil to each one. I'm just going to roughly eyeball how much I want in each one. I've measured out the fragrance oil correctly for the amount of soap that I've made up, but it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit out in any of these pots, because remember, we're ombreing and pouring them all together anyway. And then I've got my mould just lightly tilted. I haven't bothered putting on my sort of mould holder or anything because I don't really want a really severe bend to this ombre, so I've just popped some mats underneath. And I do find putting a cloth under your mould is really helpful as well because it just stops it slipping once you've got it balanced up on its edge. So then just doing a normal sort of gradient ombre type pour. So keeping my nice fluid batter, adding in a little bit of that dark that I want at the edge of my sunset. And then I want to start bringing in some red tones, so it goes from the darker brown into a brownish red colour. And then I'll gradually start bringing in the other tones to get it lighter as it gets towards that setting sun. Now I did find as I was going through this ombre pour that this did start to set up a little bit more than I wanted, and I wasn't really expecting that because I've tested this fragrance oil and I know how it behaves, and it should have given me enough time to keep this nice and fluid. But I'm pretty sure what happened was I checked the temperature of my oils about 15-20 minutes before I started mixing everything up, and then I think I just forgot to check the temperatures again to see whether they'd got to a nice temperature to actually start my pour. So I do think I was probably pouring a little warmer than I normally would, which is then what caused this to be a little thicker than I would have liked. So as you can see here, it is starting to get really quite thick. It's not too bad though. I'm hoping that the ombre is still going to work out. And I don't mind if there's some banding in the ombre, that'll be fine. And you can see here, what I'm trying to do is sort of almost like jiggle my jug a lot more, and I'm going side to side really quite quickly so I don't have big blobs landing down into my soap, so I can still get, as far as I possibly can, these sort of lines going through. And then when I'm past the level that I want my sun, I'm just going to take that sun embed and push it down into the soap. Now as you can see, my soap is reasonably thickish at this point, so I've got no worries about that sinking too far in. And then I'll just carry on and finish off the rest of that sky batter. I'm going back to adding in some darker shades now because we're moving away from that setting sun, so my sky would be a little bit darker. I'm going to let this layer set up a little bit because I'm going to do a scraped layer for my pyramids. Now, one of the things I always do, if I've got an embed like I have here and I'm going to do a scraped layer, I always like to do a little test to make sure that embed is right out the way. So I'll just take my scraper and I'll just pop it in a few places along the mould and just check to make sure it's not hitting the embed. Then I'm just going to scrape out my pyramids. Now, I'm actually going to do these in 2 stages because I want one of the pyramids to look like it's in front of the others. So my first scraper scrapes out the shape for all 3 pyramids because even though I only want 2 of them at this stage, I've got to get rid of that excess soap. Now, I did actually pull out quite a lot of soap batter here. One of the main reasons for that is that I wanted to have some soap samples from this soap that I can then give out to customers because it's a fragrance that I haven't had in my line before. So I then poured it a little bit deeper so I can then use this excess to make some soap samples. Now, you've seen me talk my way through some scraped soaps and all that sort of stuff and popping in embeds lots of times in the past. So therefore, I'm just going to set the rest of the pour of this to some music and just let you watch the pour go through without me chatting away.
Tick-tock, the clock keeps ticking. I don't know what I should do, and I wish you would be right here with me. My mind is filled with pictures of when we used to dance, but now I don't know where you are. I miss you so bad, won't you come back to me? I've got you in my head, you're all that I see. I've lost all my chances, I know that I am too late. I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, wondering if you're thinking about me too. Now it's too late, now it's too late. I'm out of time, but I'm still thinking of you. My heart keeps on bleeding, I have scars, the ones not healing. They're all there because of you. It's my fault, I messed it up, and I should have treated you much better, so much better. I miss you so bad, won't you come back to me? I've got you in my head, you're all that I see. I've lost all my chances, I know that I am too late. I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, wondering if you're thinking about me too. Now it's too late, I know it's too late. I'm out of time, but I'm still thinking of you. Tick-tock, the clock keeps ticking. Don't know what I should do. I wish you would be right here with me. I'm thinking of you, thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, wondering if you're thinking about me too. Now it's too late, now it's too late. I'm out of time, but I'm still thinking of you.
And then here we are the next day with our soap that's been unmoulded. So let's give it a cut and see what we've got inside. And then here are our camels walking along in front of the pyramids in the sunset. I'm pleased how that ombre's worked at the top and has given me the right shape going around my sun. So it was good with that turning the mould upside down. Now these soaps won't be available in tomorrow's shop update. I'm going to be saving them until I get to my Christmas packs and they're going to be going in there. But there will be lots of soaps and soapy tools available tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you like the soap. If you have, it would be great if you left me a thumbs up and maybe a comment in the comments section below. Thanks for watching everyone. Happy soaping!